built. Sorry I never told him I understood why he worked so hard. Sorry I spent years thinking his absence was a choice rather than a necessity. She looked down at her hands. I promised myself I wouldn't end up like him, consumed by the company, alone in my dedication, dying before I'd really lived. But here I am at 41, spending Christmas Eve at a charity gala I didn't want to attend, driving home alone to an empty penthouse, getting followed by a car that may or may not have been real, and showing up at a stranger's door because I literally had nowhere else to go. The rawness in her voice was staggering. Marcus felt like he was watching something break open, something that had been sealed shut for years. You're not a stranger. His voice came out quiet. We've worked together for 2 years. I know you take your coffee black, that you hate overhead lighting in the conference room, that you tap your pen exactly 3 times before signing important documents, that you schedule your hardest meetings for Tuesday mornings because you're sharpest then. He met her eyes. We're not strangers, Diana. We're just people who've never had this kind of conversation before. She lifted her head, and the look she gave him was complicated. Gratitude mixed with surprise, mixed with something that might have been longing. Do you have any idea how rare it is for someone to see me as a person? Really see me, not the title or the authority or the money or the power. I think you surround yourself with people who only want those things from you. It's not that you're invisible as a person, it's that you've made yourself untouchable. Have I? You know you have. It's a survival mechanism. I understand it. I do the same thing. Keep people at arm's length so they can't see the parts of you that aren't strong enough, smart enough, successful enough. Build walls so high, nobody thinks to try climbing them. Diana stared at him, and he wondered if he'd gone too far. This was still his boss, still the woman who could end his career with a word, still someone operating in a world completely different from his own. But then she smiled, small and shared and genuine. You're right about all of it. I built the walls so well I forgot there used to be doors. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of shared understanding settling between them. Outside, the city hummed its constant low-note Christmas lights twinkling in windows across the street. Inside, the radiator clanked and hissed, filling the apartment with familiar warmth. Would you like some tea? Marcus stood, needing to do something to offer something beyond words. Or coffee. I don't have anything fancy, but tea would be nice, thank you. He moved to the small kitchen, grateful for the simple task. As he filled the kettle and set it on the stove, he could feel Diana watching him from the living room. Your place is comfortable. Her voice carried across the space. Lived in. Real. It's small and old, and the plumbing makes weird noises at 3 in the morning. Marcus pulled 2 mugs from the cabinet. But it's ours, Connor's and mine. We made it home. That's more than I can say for my penthouse. 2,300 square feet of designer furniture and architectural lighting, and absolutely no soul whatsoever. I bought it because the realtor said it made a statement. I never stopped to consider what statement I actually wanted to make. Marcus pulled tea bags from a canister, basic black tea, nothing exotic, and waited for the kettle to boil. What would you want it to say if you could start over? Diana was quiet for so long, he thought maybe she wouldn't answer. Then softly, that someone lives there, that it's more than just a place to sleep between board meetings, that there's warmth and laughter and mess and all the things that make a space feel like it matters. The kettle whistled. Marcus poured hot water over the tea bags and brought both mugs to the living room, handing one to Diana before reclaiming his seat. She wrapped both hands around the mug, absorbing its heat, and took a careful sip. It's perfect. It's grocery store tea. It's perfect. She repeated it, and something in her tone made it clear she wasn't just talking about the tea. They drank in comfortable silence, and Marcus found himself relaxing despite the strangeness of the situation. There was something surreal about sitting in his living room at 12:30 on Christmas morning, sharing tea with Diana Hartford, while she wore a designer gown and he wore sweatpants and an old college t-shirt. Like 2 worlds had collided and somehow impossibly found equilibrium. Can I ask you something? Diana said eventually. Of course. When you look at me in the office, what do you see? Marcus considered the question carefully. I see someone who carries more than anyone should have to. Someone brilliant and driven and incredibly lonely. Someone who's built an empire but forgotten to build a life. Diana's breath caught slightly. And when you look at yourself, The question surprised him. I see someone who's doing his best with what he has. A father first, everything else second. Someone who used to have bigger dreams but traded them for something more important. What were the dreams? Architecture. The word came out before he could stop it, carrying years of buried longing. I wanted to design buildings, create spaces that meant something. I had a scholarship to a good program, plans to study abroad, at the whole trajectory mapped out. And then I met Sarah Connor's mom, and we fell in love fast and hard and messy. She got pregnant senior year of college. We got married at City Hall on a Tuesday. I dropped out to work full time so she could finish her degree. He paused, the old familiar ache settling in his chest. She was an artist, painter, incredible talent, the kind that makes you feel things you didn't know you could feel. We had 2 good years after Connor was born. She sold a few pieces. I worked my way up to assistant positions. We made it work. Then she got sick. Lymphoma, aggressive. The kind that doesn't give you time to prepare. She died 8 months later. Connor was 3. Diana's hand found his arm at a light touch but anchoring. I'm so sorry, Marcus. Me too, every day. He met her eyes. But I had Connor and he needed me. And grief is a luxury you can't afford when you're a single parent. So I kept the best job I could find, built routines focused on stability. Architecture became something I used to want, and that was okay because Connor needed constancy more than I needed dreams. That's not okay. Diana's voice went gentle. It's noble and necessary, and I understand it completely. But it's not okay that you had to choose. We all make choices. You chose Sterling. I chose Connor. Neither of us chose ourselves. The words hung in the air between them, stark and true. Diana withdrew her hand, setting her mug on the coffee table with careful precision. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd made different choices? Every day. But then Connor comes home from school excited about some project or tells me about his day or asks me to read him a story. And I know I chose right. He paused. What about you? Diana was quiet for a long moment, staring into her tea. I wonder what it would be like to feel something other than responsible. To wake up in the morning and think about what I want to do rather than what I have to do. To build something for myself rather than maintaining something someone else started. To be seen as Diana instead of Ms. Hartford or the CEO or William Hartford's daughter. She lifted her head. To not feel so desperately alone that I end up at a near stranger's apartment on Christmas Eve because it was the only place that felt remotely safe. Her voice cracked on the last word, and this time she couldn't stop the tears. They came silently, tracking mascara down her cheeks, and she pressed her hands to her face, trying to hide them. Marcus did the only thing that felt right. He moved to sit beside her on the couch and put his arm around her shoulders, offering comfort without words. Diana leaned into him, and he felt the moment she stopped trying to hold herself together. Her body shook with sobs she'd probably been holding back for years. He didn't tell her it would be okay. He didn't offer platitudes or solutions. He just held her while she cried, this powerful woman who'd forgotten she was allowed to break and let her grief and loneliness and fear pour out in the safety of his modest living room. Eventually, the tears slowed. Diana pulled back, wiping her face with shaking hands, makeup smudged beyond repair. I'm sorry. The whisper was barely audible. Don't be. You needed that. I don't usually, I never, she struggled for words. I haven't cried like that since my father's funeral. I forgot I even could. You're human, Diana. You're allowed to feel things. She laughed, a wet, broken sound. Am I? Because it doesn't feel like it most days. It feels like I'm supposed to be a machine, processing information, making decisions, driving revenue, maintaining shareholder value. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that underneath all of that was supposed to be a person. There is a person. I'm looking at her right now. Diana met his eyes and something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, connection. The kind of moment that happens outside of time when two people see each other completely and without pretense. Thank you, her voice steadied, for opening your door, for not asking questions I couldn't answer, for just being here. Where else would I be? I don't know. Anywhere but here, dealing with your boss having a breakdown on your couch on Christmas Eve. You're not having a breakdown. You're having a breakthrough. Marcus smiled slightly. There's a difference. Is there? Yeah. A breakdown is when everything falls apart and you can't put it back together. A breakthrough is when you finally admit something isn't working and decide to change it. Diana considered this turning the idea over like a stone she'd found on a beach. What if I don't know how to change it? What if I've been this person for so long, I don't remember how to be anyone else? Then you start small. One honest moment, one real conversation, one night where you let yourself be seen. He paused. Like this. Like this, she echoed, and some of the weight seemed to lift from her shoulders. They sat together in the quiet, no longer boss and employee, but simply two people who'd found unexpected refuge in each other's company. The radiator clanked. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's television murmured. Outside, the city settled into the deep hours of Christmas morning. Can I tell you something? Diana asked eventually. Anything. I almost didn't come to your door. I sat in my car trying to talk myself out of it, convincing myself you'd think I was crazy, that this was inappropriate, that I should just drive to a hotel and pretend tonight never happened. She paused. But then I thought about going back to being alone, and I couldn't do it. Not tonight, not one more night of pretending I was fine when I'm so far from fine I can't even see it anymore. I'm glad you knocked. Are you really? Because this has to be the strangest Christmas Eve you've ever had. Definitely the strangest, but also maybe the most honest. He glanced at her. I spend most of my time taking care of Connor or working or doing the million small things that keep our life running. I don't have room for anything else. But talking to you tonight, really talking, not just office conversation, it reminds me that I'm still a person too. That there are parts of me I've put away that still exist somewhere. Diana nodded slowly. We're both disappearing, aren't we? Me into the company, you into fatherhood. Both of us so focused on what we're supposed to be that we forgot about who we are. Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely. She turned to face him more fully. What would you do if you could do anything tomorrow? If there were no responsibilities or obligations or expectations? Marcus didn't have to think about it. I'd take Connor to the Natural History Museum. We've been planning to go for months, but something always comes up. Work, or he's sick, or the weather's bad, or I'm too tired. Tomorrow I just go, spend the whole day looking at dinosaurs and planets and ancient civilizations with my kid and not worry about anything else. That sounds perfect. What about you? Diana was quiet for a long moment. I'd stay right here, in this apartment with its clanking radiator and secondhand furniture and tea that tastes like it matters. I'd stay in this conversation where someone sees me as a person instead of a position. I'd stay in this moment where I don't have to be strong or certain or in control. She paused. I'd stay somewhere I don't feel alone. The honesty of it hit Marcus like a physical thing. He reached out and took her hand, and she laced her fingers through his, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had gone fluid and uncertain. You're not alone, not tonight. I know. That's what makes it so strange. I came here terrified and running, and I found, she struggled for the word, safety. Not the kind that comes from locks and alarms and security systems, the kind that comes from being with someone